Hi, I'm Kirsty Louise and this is my dog Hank, and today I'm going to show you how to sew my little star pet bandana. You'll find a link to the pattern in the description of this video. You'll need some fabric, I use 100% cotton, a tape measure, some scissors, a pen to mark your fabric, something with a pointy end, I use an old makeup brush, a bodkin is optional, a large safety pin, some fabric clips, either a 1/4 or 1/2 inch elastic, I use 1/2 inch, and lastly a personalised tag which is optional. Before printing your pattern, you're going to want to make sure that your printer settings are set to actual size or 100% scale. You can then cut down one side of the pattern, make sure the triangles meet, and stick the two pieces together. There is a guide at the top of each page to make sure your pattern is printed correctly. Now it's time to cut your pattern out. Before you start, give your fabric a good iron. Then fold your fabric in half lengthways, right sides together, and give that fold a good press. Place the pattern on top of your fabric and use your clips to hold it in place. Now draw around the pattern. Once you're done, it should look like this. I recommend adding some clips to the fabric to hold it in place while you sew. Taking your fabric over to the sewing machine, you're going to start sewing just above the tab. Don't forget to backstitch. When you get to the point, you're going to make sure your needle is in the fabric, lift your presser foot up, swivel the fabric round, and then pop the presser foot back down. Repeat this until you get to the top of the end tab. Don't forget to backstitch at the end. And now you should have something that looks like this. I start the cutting by cutting each of the side tabs. Starting from the raw edge of the fabric, you're going to cut a straight line down into the lower point, cutting as close as you can to that stitch line without actually cutting the threads. I find by doing this my fabric doesn't tend to pucker when I turn it right side out. Now you're going to cut around the triangles. I usually leave about 1/8 of an inch from the stitch line. Now I recommend cutting the point off of each triangle. Following this step is what gives us a really crisp, clean point when we turn it right side out. We're now going to use our safety pin to turn the fabric right side out. If you've ever sewn a scrunchie, this is exactly the same process. Once that's done, it should look like a tube without any of the points. This is where I take my old makeup brush and I just gently push out each of the points. Make sure you're not using anything too sharp or pushing too hard because you don't want to rip through any of those seams. Repeat this process for all of the points. Once that's done, take it over to your ironing board and give it a really good iron. Take your time with this and make sure everything's laying nice and flat before we move on to the next stage. You're going to want to fold the raw edge of one of the tabs inside itself. Once you've done that, give it one final iron. Now head back over to your sewing machine. You're going to want to sew approximately 1/4 of an inch away from the tab and 3/4 of an inch away from the folded edge. Sew a straight line all the way across, backstitching at the beginning and the end. For this bandana to be the perfect fit for your dog, I recommend using a soft measuring tape to measure your dog's neck. Once you have that measurement, add 1 inch to that number, and that will be the length of your elastic. For example, my dog's neck measures 11.5 inches, so I cut my elastic to be 12.5 inches. I'm using my bodkin to thread my elastic, but you can use a safety pin. I just personally find the bodkin easier and quicker when I'm doing this process. When I'm threading my elastic, I usually use a clip at the other end so that I'm not pulling it all the way through. Once the elastic's threaded, I give it a good stretch to make sure it hasn't twisted inside the channel, and then I overlap the elastic by about 1/4 of an inch and clip it together. I recommend setting your machine to a zigzag stitch for this next part. Just as you would when you're sewing a scrunchie, you're going to want to sew back and forth with a zigzag stitch a couple of times. Then just cut away those loose threads. Now you need to tuck the raw edge of the tab into the folded edge, and it should look like this. You can clip that together and take it over to the sewing machine if you're not adding a tag. If you are adding a tag, then this is what we're going to do now. I just tuck mine into that folded edge. Give it a clip so it's nice and secure and take it over to the sewing machine. Now all you're going to want to do is sew that opening closed. Don't forget to backstitch at the start and the end. Clip away any of those last loose threads, and then I tend to just move the fabric around the elastic so each part looks more even. And that's your sewing project complete. Now it's just time to try it on your model. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would love and appreciate if you could subscribe to this channel, and I'll be back soon with more tutorials.